Searching for a romantic summer getaway? Escape with Rich Girl Summer, the new Audible original from Lily Chu. The exquisitely talented Philippa Soo, returning to narrate her 5th Lily Chu title. This time, Philippa is joined by her real-life husband, Stephen Pasquale. Set in Toronto's wealthy cottage country, aka the Hamptons of Canada, Rich Girl Summer follows the story of Valerie, a down-on-her-luck event planner posing as a socialite's long-lost daughter, while piecing together the secrets surrounding a mysterious family and falling deeper and deeper in love with the impossibly hard-to-read and infuriatingly handsome family assistant, Nico. Caught between pretending to belong and unexpectedly finding where she truly fits in, Valerie learns her summer is about to get far more complicated than she ever planned. She's in over her head and head over heels. Listen to Rich Girl Summer now on Audible. Go to audible.com/richgirlsummer.
Church's Smokehouse Chicken is back, and the block already knows what's up. The signature Smokehouse rub hits every piece of that juicy half chicken with bold, smoky flavor that goes straight to the bone. Nobody else does it like Church's. Our recipe served up just for you. Get it in original or bring the heat with the spicy rub. Dial it up Texas style with a honey butter biscuit and a spicy jalapeno pepper on the side. The new dry rub has everybody talking. Lose yourself in the flavor of Smokehouse Chicken starting at $5.99. Order online or in-store only at Church's. Price and participation may vary. Tax extra. U.S. only.
The amazing Kate Casey.
Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and welcome back for this Saturday series episode. It was a cold morning on December 16th, 2000, when 31-year-old Mike Williams kissed his pregnant wife Denise goodbye and set out for a duck hunting trip at Lake Seminole in northern Florida. An experienced outdoorsman, Mike promised to be home by noon to celebrate their 6th wedding anniversary, but he never returned home. A search party quickly descended on the lake, among them Mike's best friend, Brian Winchester, and Brian's father. They found Mike's empty boat and shotgun, but there was no sign of Mike. Authorities concluded that he had likely drowned and been eaten by alligators. Mike, Denise, Brian, and Brian's wife, Kathy, had known each other since high school in Tallahassee. 2 couples, 2 sets of high school sweethearts. But 6 months after Mike's disappearance, his waders, jacket, hunting license, and flashlight were found. He was declared legally dead, unusually fast. Mike's mother, Cheryl, never believed it was an accident. She began her own investigation, writing daily letters to the Florida governor for 9 years. There were over 1,400 in total, and compiling 27 pages of notes. She discovered that alligators don't feed in cold weather, and that Denise had collected $1.75 million in life insurance, including a $1 million policy written by Brian Winchester just months before Mike vanished. When Denise and Brian married in 2005, suspicions deepened. It was eventually revealed that they had been having an affair for years and had even discussed faking a boating accident to kill both of their spouses. Denise refused to divorce Mike due to her religious beliefs and to avoid sharing custody of their daughter. So, they planned a murder. That morning, Brian met Mike at the lake, luring him onto a boat under the guise of showing him a secret hunting spot. Once on the water, Brian pushed Mike overboard, but Mike didn't drown. He clung to a tree stump, struggling to survive. That's when Brian shot him in the face. He transported Mike's body in a tarp, buried him near Carr Lake, and then returned to help the search, pretending to look for his missing best friend. Brian and Kathy divorced soon after, and by 2012, he and Denise had separated. In 2015, Denise filed for divorce, but Brian, desperate to keep her, took a dangerous turn. On August 5, 2016, Denise reported to police that Brian had hidden in her car, held her at gunpoint, and threatened to kill himself. She managed to escape, and Brian was arrested, setting off a chain of events that would finally crack the case. Facing prison time for kidnapping and assault, Brian agreed to a deal. He confessed to Mike's murder and implicated Denise in exchange for immunity from a murder charge. He also led police to Mike's remains. In May 2018, Denise Williams was arrested for first-degree murder, conspiracy, and accessory after the fact. In court, Brian testified that they had planned it together. We had an agreement, he said, and that she would never say anything about me and I would never say anything about her. Key to the case was Brian's ex-wife, Kathy Thomas. She became a police informant, went undercover, and later testified against both her former husband and best friend. Her courage and persistence helped bring long overdue justice to Mike's family. This story is now the subject of the Hulu true crime docuseries, Mr. and Mrs. Murder, a 4-part deep dive into the shocking disappearance of Mike Williams and Kathy's extraordinary quest for the truth. And I am thrilled to welcome Kathy Thomas as my Saturday series guest. Here is our conversation. So first, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me.
So here we are all of these years later, but I want to start from the beginning. Tell me about your experience growing up, about the culture in which you were born, the community in which you were born, and kind of like that small town feel.
Yeah, so Tallahassee was back in the 80s and 90s. It was definitely still that kind of small town community. A lot of us who went to school together, went to church together.
It wouldn't be surprising for you to marry somebody that you had grown up with.
Oh, no, not at all. And especially this family knows this family. And so their kids are now, have grown up together and they're married. And so, yeah, that was very much a common thing to grow up and marry someone that maybe you hadn't been at school with them, but you grew up in a neighborhood with them, or there was like everybody was connected by maybe just a couple of people in between. It was that old-fashioned kind of Southern town growing up.
So tell me about Brian. How did you first meet him? And at what point did you think this is someone I'm probably going to end up with?
I met Brian in high school. He did not come over to the school that I went to until he was in 9th grade. So he had come up in a separate private school that only went to 8th grade. So he came over to the school I was at in 9th grade, North Florida Christian, and he started there as a freshman. And that is when I met him. And we started dating like our between our 10th and 11th grade school year before, that summer. And but we had been friends. We had kind of run in the same little friend group for a long time. So we knew each other really well. And I think it was probably, at that point, you have this idea of what you're starting, you're in 11th grade, 12th grade, you're starting to visualize yourself. You're starting to kind of say, this is what I want when I'm older. This is what I want after college. It was very common for everyone to just be expected to go straight into college. We had a Tallahassee Community College in Tallahassee and Florida State University. And so it was very common for us to graduate. And many of the kids I graduated with went to TCC for 2 years and then went on to usually Florida State to finish there. And it was kind of like, okay, once I finish college, then that's when my real life's going to start. And I was probably, we were seniors in high school and we're still dating when we graduated, and we're still dating at the community college level. So it was probably during those community college years that we really started talking about, having a future together.
And so at one point, do you meet Mike and Denise? And how soon are you spending a lot of your time together?
So Mike and I met in 5th grade. So the school that we went to was a private Christian school. It was kindergarten through 12th grade. And we met in 5th grade. And so we were pretty much friends and buddies all through high school. Mike was just that kind of guy. He was friends with everybody. We saw each other grow up, almost like your siblings would, right? So how many people do you know that you've known since elementary school? So we had a pretty special friendship. We went through a little spout where we kind of had a crush on each other, but neither one of us could drive. So they called that going together back then. And We met at the mall a few times, but that, there was no spark there. So we just turned into good friends. We stayed good friends. Denise, she came to North Florida also her 9th grade year. She had been at the same private school from elementary and middle school as Brian. So she and Brian knew each other from childhood. In high school, we kind of moved in different circles. Denise had some other friends that she was closer to. In high school, we weren't really as gelled as we were as after we graduated. And now you've got like a bigger population of other people in there. It was, since the 4 of us came from North Florida, Mike and Denise, they didn't go to TCC, but kind of their core group from high school had kind of dispersed. And so we were kind of like the ones left in Tallahassee that were, in close proximity. And so that it was really like the early years of college that the 4 of us just gelled and really became that foursome where we're doing bowling nights together. We're doing movie nights together. We're doing dinners together and planning our weddings. And we're just like morphing towards, our weddings, getting married and settling down.
Now, at some point, you note that your interests are waning. Like they want to stay out all night. And you are at a point in your life where you're like, I want to settle down.
We had all grown up in this very conservative type atmosphere where we didn't do parties. We didn't go out dancing. We didn't sneak around and drink. We didn't do those activities during college that, when we were in college, we were all just like already coupled up and are already like wanting to be married and settled. So we just kind of skipped all that. It was probably about 2 years of this partying and kind of like doing this circuit, Tallahassee and, doing those nights when it just started, I say to Brian, we've been married now for, 4 years. When are we going to start trying to start our family? Mm-hmm. And, he always would say, we can have babies when we're in our 30s, but we can only do this now. And Denise kind of picked up on that because it was something that she was not ready to start having kids. But the more I would, when the 4 of us were together out to dinner or over eating at one or the other's house, and I'm kind of on this, like, I'm tired of doing this. I'm ready to start having a baby. I want to have a baby. And Mike is picking up on my vibes. The 2 of them are Mike is like, yeah, when are we going to start having kids? Brian and Denise are kind of like, well, we can have kids in our 30s. We can always have kids. But once we have kids, all this stops. And Mike and I were like, okay, that's fine. We're ready. Like, we're done with this. And that is really kind of where the divide came. Mm-hmm. Now, all of that baby talk and all of that family talk had started, it would be kind of like, okay, well, we're going to go out tonight. We're going to go here or there or whatever. And it'd be like, well, I don't really want to go. I don't feel like it. I just want to stay home. No, come on, let's go. And Mike started pulling away, just kind of working more so that he didn't have to participate. And, but that is really where I can remember from the 4 of us having that first break. And like, everybody's on the same page. Like, everybody's not on the same page anymore. Mm-hmm. Mike and I are on one page. Brian and Denise are on another page. What I didn't know until very much later, as in when Brian did his proffer, what I didn't know is they had already started their affair at this point. They had already started their affair.
Did you see flirting between them at all?
I didn't see flirting. like outright flirting. They were but we were all friends. And so it wouldn't be uncommon for, say, when you haven't seen, if you haven't seen, you've got a couple friends and y'all are going to meet for dinner. And so you walk up and you greet them and you give them a hug, and it's all just very like, it's good to see you. I'm glad to see you, or whatever. It wasn't like that. They never did anything overtly obvious, but it was a atmosphere, if I could put that word on it. You could just kind of feel it, where you felt like they looked at each other in a certain, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, what was that? Like, that looked like something, but you can't. And Brian, my relationship with him was fairly controlling. We had this, he displayed a lot of just kind of narcissistic tendencies, as far as there were times that I questioned him, and he would have a way of turning it around back on me, where, well, why, if you noticed something, does that mean you're guilty of something?
Right.
Where it's just this kind of like a lot of gaslighting. And so anytime, and he would say to me, Denise is my best friend. She always has been. And that's just how it is. And, I would be like, well, she wasn't always your best friend. Like, I thought I was your best friend, type thing. And I know that Mike picked up on it as well. I wish that, but I think in hindsight, this is, my 54-year-old self looking back at that. I feel like Mike and I, in those moments, we were like, if I say something to Mike, it's going to make it real, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be something that sticks. And then I don't want to, obviously I can't speak for him, but I feel like he had that same feeling. Like, neither one of us wanted to
acknowledge
it, because now it's out there. Now your mind really can go in places that may or may not, your imagination just starts going wherever. But there, of regrets that I have looking back, I wish that Mike or I had the courage to just like cross that line and push that feeling. But I think Denise and Mike, I think their relationship was very much the same. Denise also has a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And I think she was doing a lot of that to Mike as well. Just, why are you pointing the finger at me? Like, if you think I look guilty, maybe that means you've done something. And, it is, when you're in this, we really were in this relationship that was pretty isolated. We didn't have, it wasn't 6 people or 8 people where I could go to another girlfriend and be like, what do you think about that?
Right.
It was hard. Mike and I, we never crossed that line of saying, what do you think's going on here? Do you think something's weird?
This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. No matter how hot your summer gets, Liquid IV can help keep you hydrated for the adventures ahead. This summer, I'm traveling with my son Jack for lacrosse tournaments. Hot, blazing, sunny afternoons. There is nothing that tastes as good and keeps you as hydrated as Liquid IV. I just tear, pour, and enjoy. And I'm calling out to all of you parents who will also be watching your athletes this summer. This is a game changer. The sugar-free options include white peach, lemon lime, rainbow sherbet, and the new Arctic raspberry. But they've also got cotton candy or popsicle firecracker. Just 1 stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, and always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Squeeze the most out of your summer with Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code KateCasey at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code Kate Casey at liquidiv.com.
How hard is it to kill a planet? Maybe all it takes is a little drilling, some mining, and a whole lot of carbon pumped into the atmosphere. When you see what's left, it starts to look like a crime scene.
Are we really safe? Is our water safe? You destroyed our town.
And crimes like that, they don't just happen.
We call things accidents. There is no accident. This was 100% preventable.
They're the result of choices by people. Ruthless oil tycoons, corrupt politicians, even organized crime. These are the stories we need to be telling about our changing planet. Stories of scams, murders, and cover-ups that are about us and the things we're doing to either protect the Earth or destroy it. Follow Lawless Planet on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to new episodes of Lawless Planet early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
The day that he disappeared, did you feel something was off right away?
I really did not on the day. The day that he disappeared was, for me, I was kind of in my own world. I now have my son at this point. It was a day we were going up to my family's Christmas party about 45 minutes away over in South Georgia. So I was very much focused on wrapping presents to take to that party, getting my son dressed and ready for that party. And he was little. So, I was just managing all of that. And at that point in our relationship, Brian and I were very disconnected, and we were living in the same house, but we weren't in sync in any kind of way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when I got up and he was gone, I knew it was hunting season, and that didn't surprise me that he was gone. I didn't really care. That's just kind of where we were at that time. And the only thing I had told him about that day was that I was leaving at 3:00 to go to this Christmas party. When Denise called me around lunchtime and said that she hadn't heard from Mike, and did I know where Brian was? Did I know where Mike were? We did have cell phones. They were the flip phones. She and I are talking on a landline. And I said, no, I haven't heard from anybody. I don't know where they are. I didn't know where they had gone hunting. I didn't know if they were together or hunting with different people. But none of that was a red flag, because that's just kind of how it was anyways. And so when she called to say that, I really did, in hanging up with her, I just really did think, Mike's boat has run out of gas. Or Mike is stuck, his boat is stuck somewhere. I did not go to a place that was like, something's dangerous here. And when Brian ended up, my son and I went to my family Christmas party. And when Brian showed up about an hour and a half, 2 hours late, that wasn't surprising either. Like, I just left. I talked to Denise again. I said, I'm just going. He's not home, but I'm going. And there again, just kind of like where we were, I wasn't thinking anything is up at this point. I'm just thinking, this is how he is. He doesn't care to go to the party. He didn't really want to go anyways, so he's made a reason to be late. It's not a priority. It wasn't a priority for Brian to get to that party. And so when he got to the party, he's engaging with my family, but not really more or less than usual. He was the kind of guy that, all right, so, like if you're somewhere in an uncomfortable situation, if you're at a dinner party and maybe you're not having the best time, most of us don't want to show that on our face. We're not going to stand there he was a moody kind of guy. He was a pouty kind of guy. And so he was there, but he was kind of checked out, just like he normally would be. And So none of that was really concerning. It probably wasn't until the beginning of the next week, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, when now I'm at Denise's house more and I'm kind of like watching what's happening there. And I kept saying to myself, because I had watched, well, back then there was like the Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
And there was the Lifetime movies and things like that. There weren't a lot of true crime, but I was kind of interested in that. But I did know, just from what I had seen, is they always talk to the spouse first. So I can remember thinking, any day now, the police are going to come here to talk to Denise.
Right.
And that just never happened.
But did their dynamic together after Mike disappears seem different?
Their dynamic didn't seem, the way that they behaved around each other didn't seem different. Brian was spending time at the lake, going through the motions of looking for Mike. So they weren't together a whole lot. When they were together, he was just kind of like, what do you need? What do you need me to do for you? Type thing. And I know she spent several weeks, probably going into 2 months, like literally not leaving the house, because she just holed up in there, and we're bringing food over. So she does not want to be seen out in public while they're looking for Mike at the lake. And so they were not together a whole lot, just physically, because Brian was at the lake so much and she was holed up at the house.
So knowing all of the people involved in this and having the benefit of time.
Right.
And based on things that they have said and the work of prosecutors, what do you believe happened in terms of the timeline and how this plan was concocted?
Well, I'll go back to an incident that Mike had where he had gone on a hunting trip earlier within that year, and he had fallen in. He had gone on a hunting trip to Arkansas, and he had fallen in the water and in the Mississippi River. They had been duck hunting around the Mississippi River. And when he came back from that trip, he was really, really sick. Like he had swallowed some of the water and that sort of. And he was really, really sick, like these flu-like symptoms that were just like incredible. And I mean, I can even remember going over to take food over to their house. And he was literally laid out on the couch, covered up, sleeping, sweaty, the whole flu thing. But we all knew it had come from that accident when he had fallen in the lake or fallen in the Mississippi River and gotten out, but just the bacteria that he swallowed is what made him sick. So I believe that when they saw that, and knowing Brian had mentioned that, sort of like, well, what if I hadn't helped him get out? Because Brian had helped him get out of the water. And I think, and they were having, Brian and Denise are now in the middle of an affair, which I'm not sure about the timeline, but it would have been at least 2 years at this point. And I think that probably the two of them started, I don't know if you would call it brainstorming or fantasizing about what if you hadn't helped him get out of that water. I could see, because I think back to that time a lot about when Mike got so sick from falling in, that could have been something that could have been a time that he drowned. And I think that likely they started these discussions. Denise was not going to get a divorce. I had already started talking to Brian about, getting a divorce. I'm going to leave. There was 2 specific times that I had packed my stuff to leave, and Denise calls me to talk me out of it, she would say, do you really want to raise your son as a white trash single mom?
Wow.
That would be her message to me. You can't do this. You cannot get a divorce. Brian would say, who is going to want you? So let's say we get divorced. who is going to want you?
But why did they want you guys to stay married? What was the reason for that?
Just that image of just our upbringing of, you know, we had grown up hearing the messages of God hates divorce. You don't get divorced, period. You do not get divorced. And
God's okay with adultery, but not down with divorce.
And we can, you know, it's better, you know, it's always interesting when I don't listen to his testimony a lot, but sometimes I can't avoid it. I've got to hear it for whatever reason. It's always interesting to me when he says, we had worked this up in our minds, like, you know, if God wants him to live, Mike will find a way out. Whenever he's like, I'm going to push him over the boat with his waders on, with the belief that he'll drown immediately. And if God wants him to live, Mike will get out of the situation, which is what Mike was doing after Brian pushed him in. You know, Mike was getting his waders off and Mike was getting his jacket off. And Brian's, you know, was pushed to the point of having to, you know, quote, play God at that moment. And he did. You know, Denise had very strong feelings about divorce. That would not have been an option. She would not have, just from her upbringing, there was no physical abuse. There was none of these obvious, you know, a woman's life is in danger, so then a divorce is okay. There was none of that. So really, she never would have gone through a divorce. And Brian didn't want it either. He dragged ours out for several years. And so, you know, I think leading up to that moment, they did a lot of fantasizing about, well, we can't be together because we're both married. So
Right.
What are we going to do about that?
So as you get a divorce and you're starting your new life, how much are your lives intersecting? Obviously, you have a child that you share, but outside of that, did you feel at all that you had any escape from him at all, or of them, when you come from this small community?
It was tough. It was up and down. In those years after we get a divorce, Denise was very angry at me. You know, and especially because I moved out and I got the divorce after Mike was gone. So now it just looks so scathing. Mike is gone, but now Kathy has left Brian. So there was a lot of questions around what's happening here, that, you know, I left him in September of that year. Brian didn't tell even his own parents for 2 months that I had moved out because he didn't want anybody to know. So, living and they were secret. They would use the kids and say, you know, from the community's eyesight, you know, from their view, they're two single parents having play dates together. And so they would try very hard. And outside of that, I had my son we didn't have a divorce at that point. We're just separated. And so I would keep my son, and then Brian would just randomly get him for an hour or two here or there when it was convenient for him. And so, you know, it was pretty tense, and it was pretty fractured, just because they were kind of so hard on me for separating for no real reason. You know, I'm just leaving because I don't want to live with this person anymore. He's controlling. He's, you know, micromanaging all of my life. He's suffocating me as far as what kind of mother I am. None of those were good reasons to get a divorce. So they, for many years, kind of isolated themselves from me just to, I think, kind of punish me as far as saying, well, if you're going to do, me moving out was the worst thing in their eyes that I could have done.
The hypocrisy is alarming.
It is. It's so warped and it's so toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What were their dynamics together that you would know of? Because you've said that both of them have narcissistic tendencies. So put them together. What was that like?
Well, in those years, it was like euphoric almost, because now what they wanted is coming together, right? So Mike is out of the picture. Denise is single, so she's available to be with Brian. I've moved out. They told a lot of people in their church community, Brian came in with this story of like, I loved my wife so much. I tried so hard. She left me. So the people in their new church together sees Brian as this poor husband. He's a single dad because his wife abandoned him type thing. And so really, I would, their honeymoon period lasted for a very long time. I think a lot of that was, I think there was definitely a rush. Let me say that again. I wouldn't say definitely. I would imagine there was this rush of adrenaline that they've gotten, like they've created this life that they wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're also probably horrible to each other at some point because they have to face each other every day knowing what they've done. And that must have weighed on them enormously.
I think that came later. I think it came later, really for Denise. I think it came much later. I think it came after they had been married long enough for her to start seeing Brian's habits that used to drive me just insane. He started treating her that way, but it took some time, just like it had taken, when he was that way as a husband, he wasn't like that as a boyfriend. You know what I mean? So he is able to
mask it.
He is able to mask it. Absolutely. And I think by the time that they had been married for several years, living under the same roof, that's when all of that started, that is when, and by now, I have, while they're going through their marriage, I do think they both have very strong personalities. They both have that alpha personality where they want to be the one to call the shots. And I think that additionally, the church they were in had that very conservative type. The man is the head of the household.
Right.
And the woman is submissive to him. And so Denise, for a very long time, because they wanted to project that about their relationship, she was able to do that. And it was around their 6 years or so when I think she just was like sick of that, sick of that dynamic.
Hey grown-ups, I'm Mindy Thomas.
And I'm Guy Raz.
And we're the host of the #1 podcast for curious kids, Wow in the World.
Mindy, can you believe we have our very own Wow in the World STEM toys?
I totally can't believe it, Guy Raz. 8 years ago, when we started making Wow in the World, we were on a mission to spread the latest wow discoveries in science and technology and innovation. And now we get to help kids discover these wows right at home?
That's right. From the ultimate high-flying air rocket to the light-up terrarium, there's something for every wowzer in your world to play and tinker with.
Grown-ups, you can find Wow in the World STEM toys available now at select Walmart locations or online at walmart.com. Shop the wow now.
It's your man, Nick Cannon, and I'm here to bring you my new podcast, Nick Cannon at Night. I've heard y'all been needing some advice in the love department. So who better to help than yours truly? Nah, I'm serious. Every week, I'm bringing out some of my celebrity friends and the best experts in the business to answer your most intimate relationship questions. Having problems with your man? We got you. Catching feelings for your sneaky link? Let's make sure it's the real deal first. Ready to bring toys into the bedroom? Let's talk about it. Consider this a non-judgment zone to ask your questions when it comes to sex and modern dating in relationships, friendships, situationships, and everything in between. It's gonna be sexy, freaky, messy, and you know what? You'll just have to watch the show. So don't be shy. Join the conversation and head over to YouTube to watch Nick Cannon at Night, or subscribe on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Want to watch episodes early and ad-free? Join Wondery Plus right now.
Well, you worked quietly behind the scenes, partnering even with law enforcement, which is incredible. What were some of the biggest challenges in gaining their trust or keeping momentum? Because you're like a dog without a bone, and you have to keep people as invested in this as you are.
I was having a lot of frustrations. I mean, some of the challenges were just the number of investigators that would pick up the case, and then there would never really be any traction that could go anywhere. There was virtually no physical evidence. So what was frustrating was to tell this whole story to a brand new investigator, just to not hear anything for several months. And then maybe a year and a half goes by, or 2 years, and another investigator comes in. And now I'm starting from scratch pretty much. And, so I had some, during those years, I was like losing faith, and this process isn't going to go anywhere. And I had gotten remarried to my husband at the time, and I had gotten remarried. We've got small children together. And my son is still very young. And so I found myself in this double life almost, where I'm trying to be a sane mom and not think about this all the time. But Brian, as time went by, he just became more and more confident that he was never going to get caught. And so that all of those controlling tendencies, even though we're now, I'm remarried, I have this family of my own, he's like just constantly, it's just like a drip. It's just like a constant drip. And, that was very complicated there were times, I would try to push back. My husband was very supportive. By the time and I talk about in the series, just like my cracking point, because I'm seeing him a lot. Denise and I are still estranged, but I'm seeing them a lot. Our son had started playing Little League baseball. And so we're seeing each other out on the baseball field all the time, several times a week. And, there would just always be some sort of correction that he would have of me, some sort of insult about something I had done with our son. And there was just this, I was like a boiling kettle, like about to blow. And one night I did, and my husband, who was had been along on this ride with me the whole time, he was like a fresh set of eyes when he came in, and, just pointing out these inconsistencies and these things that were strange. And so he and I both were just like, oh, and I came in, and I was at a cracking point. It was like my brain just cracked in half. And we talked a lot that night. He talked me off, a ledge that I talk about in the series. But, it was like, that was sort of the pivot point where I decided, I had been told by Derek Wester that very first investigator I talked to, as long as they are together, they're going to keep this secret. And so my husband and I decided, we're going to break them up and get to and figure it out. And that is when, out there on that baseball field, I said to Denise's daughter, invite your mom over and she can come sit with us. And I just knew I was going to have to warm back up to her and get to that same place that we had been.
Yep.
Well, I knew I'd never be able to do that with Brian, but, it consumed my life, as far as, just like I said, like this double life of constantly trying to stay a couple of steps ahead as far as getting back close with her. And also just trying to raise a family and be a wife and be a mom and be normal and not, I couldn't talk about this with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm really thankful that I had a husband who supported that.
Well, especially because this puts you back in the previous chapter of your life, in that headspace. So you're positioning yourself where you're going to, for lack of a better term, get triggered by someone and place yourself back into the younger version of yourself, while you're also with your new husband and you're plotting and trying to maintain your regular life. So it's like a Jedi mind tricks. It's like mental gymnastics on crack.
It really was. I had to take all of that betrayal that had been laid on me by my best friend, by my husband at the time, by Brian, all of the deception, all of the heartbreaking things that they had done to me. And I had to put that in a box and put it on the shelf and not think about it. Like I could not dwell on that. I could not wallow in that. I could not really even think about it, because if I did, I would have just thrown my hands up in the air and said, screw it. Like, I can't deal with all these emotions. So I definitely did have to box all of that up and shelve it.
You just played the long game and you outpaced them. How did that feel in the end, to get your power back and to get justice for your old friend?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it is hard to describe it. I just got chills all over, just like thinking back, all the work I had done. I was working with Will Michler at this point. All this work I had done for so long. All of the, just like you said, just play the mousy version of myself so that they don't see anything assertive, or they don't see anything in me that's going to tip them off.
Mm-hmm.
That moment that I recorded Denise on that phone call, and that became evidence that I testified with. It was, because I was on the car with her when that phone call happened. It came out of me like, I don't even know, birthing a child. It came out of me. It felt so good to know that to know that I had done it. She trusted me. She trusted me enough to have that phone call with me. And it was an amazing feeling. It's hard to put words to it. But just thinking of it just puts chills all over my body. So it was, I had gone all those years. I had my best friend. She'd been my best friend since college, Elisa. And she, from the first moment she met Denise, back when we were still at Florida State, she met Denise and she said, you need to be careful of her. Like, she saw it immediately, but when you are close in a toxic relationship, you don't see that. And then my husband, Rocky, had the same sort of thing as he started like getting to know them, just kind of like, you need to be careful of them. But when you are so entrenched in a toxic situation, you don't see it. It takes like outside eyes to see that. And so I had a lot of, I had a lot of support from them as far as they didn't always know what I was up to, but they were just, I guess you could say, trusted the process. And it was the long game, like you say. I kept going back to what Derek Wester had told me. As long as they are together, they will keep the secret. That was always in my brain. And they were so tight for so many years. And I knew I was going to have to somehow break them up. How am I going to do that? And if that is the key, if he's telling me they're never going to tell the secret as long as they're together. So he's given me that clue. So now I have a job. What do I want to do? I want to find the secret. I have to break them up. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to have to get close to her again. So it meant all that pain that I had sat on for a lot of years, I had to shelve it, and I had to treat her as if she had always been my best friend. I had to treat her as if she didn't hurt me. And that was a lot of that double life,
The duality. Well, I'm thinking of you and Mike as these fifth graders out on the playground, and how your lives must have twisted and turned. But I could imagine that fifth grade boy looking at you with, adoration and to think as older people, he would be so proud of you and probably not surprised because he probably knew you had it in you.
I hope so. I mean, I certainly hope so. He was a great friend to me. And so I certainly believe, and I hold on to the hope that he will tell me that one day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this is such an incredible story, and I am encouraging everyone to watch Mr. and Mrs. Murder. It is available to stream right now on Hulu. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
The amazing Kate Casey.
I want to thank my fantastic guest, Kathy, and remind you to make sure that you subscribe to this podcast. Please leave a 5-star review. I hope that you join the Facebook group. It's called Reality Life with Kate Casey, and you do not want to miss out on that. So make sure that you join. You can also get my weekly what to watch list of what to watch in unscripted TV by going to katecasey.substack.com. You will get archive lists and also all of my book club selections. And then make sure you also follow me on social media at Kate Casey, CA on Instagram. It's Kate Casey on TikTok, Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky. It's at Kate Casey. And lastly, make sure that you check out the bonus podcast. I just put one up recently with Jonathan Mark, more clues about Amy Bradley and other stuff about the afterlife. And you can go on Apple Podcast or Patreon, patreon.com/Kate Casey. Check back Monday for an all-new episode.
Movie night, date night, or solo marathon, IMDb is your ultimate entertainment companion. Discover new favorites, rate what you've watched, and never miss an episode with the free IMDb app. Curate your watch list with a tap. Get personalized notifications for your favorite shows. And find your next must-watch movie or series. From blockbusters to hidden gems, we've got you covered. Download the app now, register for free, and find your next favorite.